Good morning and welcome to Daily Tanya. Today is Sunday, the 26th day of Adar. Let us begin with tzedakah. Gedolei tzedakah shemekarev es hageula. Tzedakah brings Mashiach closer. And we're going to learn the lesson from yesterday, Shabbos, the 25th day of Adar, and today's lesson. So we are still in the middle of chapter 37, a long chapter that talks about the ultimate purpose of creation, which is to transform the entire world into a good place, into a holy place, a place where only God and godliness is revealed. That we shall see and we should appreciate that Hashem is here and Hashem runs everything and everything is godly. And Alter Rebbe began gradually explaining what our deeds and actions, what they affect, what they do when a Jew does a mitzvah. So we have the energy that does the mitzvah, which is that energy becomes godly when you act the act of the mitzvah. In turn, the animal soul, the vitalizing soul that gives the energy, also becomes part and included in God. And Alter Rebbe continues now to say that this really has a global effect, because there is a chain effect on everything that is involved directly or indirectly in helping you to do the mitzvah. So anytime you do a mitzvah, anytime you fulfill God's commandment, you eat to get energy. So there were people who in the farm that planted the food. So they are also indirectly connected with your mitzvah. The energy that they have now also becomes part of Hashem, becomes part of godliness. It all becomes included. And in today's world of technology, that becomes so much more in what we are doing right now. We're using Zoom. Now, there are people all over the world that are connected with this, making it happen so that someone can hear Torah if it's recorded and listened to through different medias. That also everyone who is working in the offices of YouTube or any other media that you hear is also, they eat and they drink and they are wearing clothing that was created in a certain place, and the people that make the clothing, everything becomes part of this circle of Kedusha. Whether they know it or not, it doesn't make a difference. And this is why it's so important. Every time you take a phone, you can do so many things on the phone. You can do mundane things, and you can do good things, holy things. God forbid, you can do also not good things. And when you do a good thing on the phone, you open the phone and you study a little Torah. You send a message of Torah to someone else. You say hello to someone, make someone feel better. Then everyone who is involved in creating the phone and using the software and the hardware, everything becomes part of godliness. And that is ultimately the goal. And ultimately, this is what will be revealed when Mashiach comes. So let's see what the Alter Rebbe says today in Tanya, starting from yesterday, Shabbos, the 25th of Adar. Says the Alter Rebbe, ומאחר שכלולוס נפש החיונס שבכלולוס ישראל תהיה מרכבה קדושה להשם, once the totality of the vital soul of the community of Israel will become a holy chariot for God, meaning, as we said in the previous lesson, they will become doing the Torah mitzvahs. We said there's 613 commandments corresponding to the 613 parts of the soul. And every commandment, every part of the soul needs to be connected to Hashem. Needs to be harnessed to serve Hashem. And even though people don't necessarily do it in one life, it could have happened through multiple lives. They come in reincarnated. And ultimately, collectively, all the Jewish people becomes the community of Israel that serves and performs all of these mitzvahs, all of these commandments, and connecting all of the parts to Hashem. Azai gam klolus achayus shel olam hazeh, she klipas noiga achshav, teitze az mitum osa v'chelosa v'ta'ala liktusha. Then what happens? Also the general vitality of this world. What is the vitality of this world, which now consists of klipas noiga? It is that shell that is called noiga that is not holy yet, but can potentially become holy. And this will emerge. This will also emerge from its impurity and sickness. Impurity and uncleanliness. Impurity refers to the evil part of the klipas noiga. The sickness refers to that part that can be elevated, and will ascend to holiness. Ascend to holiness to become a chariot to Hashem. Liyos markavo laHashem bizgalus kvoidei. To become a chariot for God upon the revelation of His glory in the world to come. Which then it says, beautiful verses that talk about that ultimately in the time of Mashiach, what we will see the godliness. V'rou kol basar yachdav. Then all flesh will behold godliness. V'yofia aleim ba'adar gerein uzoi. Will behold godliness together, and He will appear over them with the majestic beauty of His power. And the glory of God will fill the whole world. And the whole world would recognize, Jews and non-Jews. There is, however, going to be a very unique connection to the Jewish people that they will see eye to eye. Israel will see eye to eye. The human eye will see the truth of godliness just as the supernal eye sees it. Just as they saw at the giving of the Torah. When God gave us the Torah, the Jewish people were able to see God, godliness. Except then, it was only temporary, because it was something that was achieved from above, that was given to us from above. But throughout the exile that we work on elevating and purifying the world, ultimately we will be able to achieve that level, and it will be in a permanent way. In the time of the giving of the Torah, it is written, you showed yourself so that it be known that God is the Lord. There is nothing else besides Him. And when this is revealed, and when we do all of the mitzvahs collectively, that will also cause the evil and impurity to disappear. Says the Alter Rebbe, through this ascent of klipas noiga to holiness, the three unclean klipas will be utterly annihilated and nullified. The ultimate impurity will be gone. Why? Because the klipas, the shalosh klipas, the three impure level of impurities, the ultimate evil of the world, they do not have their own independent existence. They only exist through the mediary of the klipas noiga, which nourishes from the holy side. Now, once we remove and elevate the intermediary into holiness, then the evil has no longer any source of nourishment, so they will disappear. for the nurture and vitality which they now receive from the holiness comes to them only by way of the Klipas Noiga, the intermediary between them. So that's what will happen, that the tumah, the impurity will be gone. Now we're not talking about the people that are not, the nations of the world. When we're talking about that they will be gone, we're talking about the opposition of godliness that is in them. That's what the Rebbe explains. It says about Mashiach, V'karka kol b'nei Sheis, it will uproot all the people of Sheis. And the Rebbe explains it will uproot the opposition of godliness within them. Benimtzo, and it follows, therefore, kol tachlis shel yemei samashiach utchiyas hamesim, sheu gilui kvoida v'lekusa yizborich, ulehavi ruach hatumah min haaretz. That the purpose of the Messianic era and of the resurrection, namely the revelation of his glory and divinity and the banishment of the spirit of impurity from the earth, what does it depend on? It depends on us. On us doing the mitzvahs right here, right now. Tolui be'amshachas alekusai ve'oyer ein soif baruch hu la'nefesh hachiyunis שבכלולוס ישראל בכל רמ"ח איבוריה על ידי קיומו כל רמ"ח מצווה עשה. This is entirely dependent on our drawing down his godliness and the blessed Ein Sof light upon all the 248 limbs of the vital soul of all of Israel. By way of the vital soul, all the world will be suffused with godliness. And this is achieved how? By the vital soul's performance of all the 248 positive mitzvahs. That's how we infuse godliness in every part of the world. And at the same time, we need to remove the nourishment of the spirit, of the evil spirit. How do we do that? By observing the 365 prohibitions. And this purpose is also dependent on our banishing the spirit of impurity, meaning the three impure kalipas, from the vital soul of all Israel. For by being banished from the vital soul, the spirit of impurity is banished from the entire world. And this is accomplished by the vital soul's observance of all the 365 prohibitive mitzvahs, thus preventing its 365 blood vessels from drawing nurture from the spirit of impurity. And Alter Rebbe goes on to explain now that basically the world is divided into 600,000 parts, in generally speaking, which is those 600,000 parts are connected, each part is connected to one of the 600,000 souls. Because generally we have 600,000 souls, which were the souls of the Jewish people present at the Mount Sinai. Now these souls have branched off from each soul another 600,000. So collectively we have each neshama is connected with a certain part in the world that needs to be elevated and needs to be purified. That's why the Baal Shem Tov once said that a Jew ends up going in a place you don't know why. You fly in a plane and you end up having an emergency landing in some place and you don't know why you ended up there. There is no coincidence. It is because your neshama belongs in that place at that moment, and there is something that your soul needs to do in that place and to elevate. So you look around you. You got to be aware. You got to be constantly on the lookout. Kiklolus Israel, Shem Shishim Ribe Neshames Protiyos, in Klolus Achayus Shel Klolus Ha'olam Ki Bishvilam Nivra. For the community of Israel, comprising 600,000 particular souls, in the general source of vitality of is the general source of vitality for the world as a whole. Why? Since the world was created for the sake of these souls. That part of the world was created so that person comes and does something spiritual with that part of the world. Each specific one of them contains, and to each is related the vitality of 1/600,000th part of the entire world. Now, this part of the world depends on his vital soul for its elevation to God through the vital soul's own elevation. So when you become elevated, that part of the world becomes elevated as well. And Alter Rebbe explains in details what we explained in the beginning. Dehainu, which means, this means that one elevates his portion of the world by his partaking of this world for the requirements of his body and vital soul in the service of God. By using the objects of this world that one's body and vital soul need for the sake of serving God, one elevates his portion of the world. For example, eating, drinking, and the like, one's dwelling, and all his utensils, and all his needs, basically, everything that we do. And Alter Rebbe goes on to say, we have, of course, much more than 600,000 Jews. So the souls have branched off. These 600,000 particular souls, however, are roots. Like a root from which grows numerous branches, each root soul subdivides into 600,000 sparks, each spark being one neshama. Now we have neshamas, you have different levels of neshamas. There's neshamas, generally speaking, there is 3 levels of neshamas. Neshama is more of the intellectual part, people that are more intellectually inclined. Ruach is more emotional. Nefesh is more action. Yeah, some people are more intellectually studying Torah and more involved in this part of. Some people are more emotionally involved in prayer and doing positive things. Then you have nefesh, people are more inclined in action, people of action, foot soldiers. Of course, every neshama has all 3, but there's also different neshamas that mainly included in contain more of one part. So similarly with the nefesh and ruach, in each of the 4 worlds, Atzilus, Bri, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, in each of these 4 worlds are found all 3 soul levels, nefesh, ruach, and neshama. So basically all of these neshamas, they're all collectively working for that goal, for that mission, in bringing the light and refining and elevating the world. And we continue now to today's lessons. The lesson of Sunday, the 26th of Adar. Continues the Alter Rebbe, each spark did not descend into this world to perfect itself. Alter Rebbe is going to say now that you can imagine now the soul that we have, that we're talking about the godly soul, not just the vivifying soul. And we're talking about the godly soul, which is pure godly. It is the spark, the God in us, that before it came down to this world, it was one with God. And for the neshama to come down to this world is a great descent it's a great exile, because being in this physical world, in a physical body, it can in no way be connected and united with God as it was before it came down. And even the greatest tzaddik, the holiest man, the holiest person on earth, like that has that like the greatest tzaddik that has nothing in this world other than Hashem, godliness, and completely in love and fear of Hashem, still is not even close of the connection that the way the soul was before it came into the body. That's what Alter Rebbe says. Each spark did not descend into this world to perfect itself, but to perfect the body and the vital soul, as the Alter Rebbe concludes here. Though it is indeed a great descent, a veritable exile for the soul. Why? For even if it becomes in this world a perfect tzaddik, serving God with fear and delighting in an abounding love of Him, nevertheless, it doesn't even get close to the way it was connected before it came down. It will not attain to the quality of its attachment to God with fear and love that the soul experienced prior to its descent into this corporal world. Not even a fraction of its earlier fear and love. In fact, there is no comparison or similarity whatsoever between them. Whereas it is obvious to every intelligent man that the body could not bear, etc. So what is the purpose? The purpose is like what we said. It came down to the world because that's the mission. The mission is to elevate the world and to purify the world, the physical world. But its descent into this world to be clothed in a body and vital soul is for the sole purpose of perfecting them. To separate them from the evil of the three impure klippos by observing the 365 prohibition and their offshoots, meaning observing the biblical laws and the rabbinical laws. And to elevate his vital soul together with the portion of the world at large that relates to it, and binding and uniting them with the Ein Sof light. Ein Sof Baruch Hu, blessed be, which he draws into them by performing all the 248 positive mitzvahs through the agency of the vital soul, because it needs the vital soul to be able to do the mitzvahs. Since the vital soul is the one that performs all mitzvahs involving action, as explained above. It is likewise written in Eitz Chaim, portal 26, because the divine soul itself does not need perfecting at all. The divine soul does not need perfecting to come down to this world. Although it does mention other places that the divine soul also gains higher levels of spirituality and godliness after being in this world and elevating this world. But it doesn't need perfection. It's perfect. But it gains more godliness. But that's not the purpose why it came down. It came down, and there is no need for it to be embodied in this world, in a body, in a vital soul, except to draw down the light to perfect them, the vital soul and the body. And this parallels exactly the mystery of the exile of the Shekhinah, whose purpose is to refine the sparks of holiness which fell into the klippos. So too does the divine soul enter this exile, into exile within the body and the vital soul, in order to perfect them and to extract from them the sparks of holiness which they contain. This is a question that is brought many times in Chassidus. Why does the neshama come down to the world? And although the answers is given again and again and again, so there was once a mashpia, Rav Nochem Sasankin, Allah Shalom, that said that question needs to be asked constantly, because although we get the answer, and we have an answer that yes, we need to be in this world because we have to be involved in the world in order to elevate the world, of course. But if the answer will be satisfactory to you and you say, okay, I know, I'm good, I'm fine, then it's not good, because then you can get lost in the world and forget about the goal. So that's why we need to ask ourselves constantly and to say to ourselves, we possess a godly soul. Why are we here? What is the purpose? I open up my eyes, I have another day. The purpose is to bring more light, to do another mitzvah, and to affect another person, another human being, and to get everyone become part of this great circle of spreading the light of Hashem and become included in Hashem. Bezat Hashem will continue tomorrow.